Okay, Brianna, first of all, thanks so much for asking 209 times to tell your story. And we were talking off camera, and the reason that you want your story told is you said that you felt like this could help other people. Could you explain what you meant?
Yeah, I meant that to help others, I want to let other people know that child abuse or can lead into adulthood. So your parents can still abuse you as an adult. It doesn't have to be physically, it can be verbally, mentally, and emotionally. So I do want people to know that if they feel like that's happening to them or it is happening to them, that they're not alone and that they're not the only one that feels like, hey, I'm an adult and my parents are abusing me, because it is a possibility, and it's something that does happen.
Okay, Brianna. So for the audience, we're talking about your mother, whose name is?
My mother is Angelann Flores.
Okay. And did she abuse you as a child?
Yes.
And we off camera spoke about several different instances. Would you feel comfortable telling the audience briefly about the gun bullet incident?
Yeah. On May 31st of 2003, I had my first communion. That night, my mother decided to take us to the motel in Charter Way in Stockton, next to the Jack in the Box, to go swimming. Her boyfriend took her vehicle. She wanted to get her vehicle back. She had my aunt pick us up in the middle of the night to go find him so she can get her vehicle back. And as we had left the hotel or motel, we got stuck at a red light in front of the Chevron on Charter Way. An argument had ensued between two unknown individuals, and then someone started shooting. The person that they were shooting at ran towards my aunt's vehicle, causing gunfire to hit her vehicle. A stray bullet came through the window, ricocheted off of the light in the middle, and hit me as I was sitting in the backseat driver's side of the vehicle. After that, my mother took me to my aunt's house and tried to put Bactine and a Band-Aid over my bullet wound, rather than taking me to the hospital. Then my uncle woke up and said, hey, what's going on? He realized I was shot, put me in the car, and then that's how I was able to get medical attention, because my uncle took me to the hospital. And my mother has tried to diminish what has happened to me in that incident. She's tried to downplay it. She's tried to say what happened didn't happen. And she's also even tried to say that it never happened at all.
You were 8 years old, is that correct?
Yes, I was 8.
Okay. And I believe that you have sent us previously a letter of, I think you wrote this during your senior year, is it possibly?
Yeah,
possible?
my senior project.
You explained this in writing about what happened.
Yes, I did.
So you were shot.
Yes.
When you were 8 years old.
Yes.
And your mother tried to put a Band-Aid and Bactine?
Yeah.
On it, as opposed to taking you to the hospital?
Correct.
And since that time, she has denied that this occurred?
She has denied on occasion that it never happened. Another time I brought it up, she tried to say that what happened wasn't what I say happened didn't happen. And then she's also tried to diminish what happened to make it kind of seem like it wasn't that big of a deal.
Okay. Now, obviously very traumatic situation being shot at 8 years old. But let me ask you, what would you say is more traumatic? Was being shot at 8 years old the most traumatic thing that you experienced, or was your mother's subsequent reaction to it more traumatic? Or was it both equally traumatic? Or, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Which one of those things bothered you back then and maybe bothers you to this day the most?
It's more traumatic at the fact that she acts like it didn't happen, tells me and others that what I know happened or how it happened, that's not how it happened, when it's something that happened to me.
Okay.
So I feel like her saying that it didn't happen is not fair, because there's literally a bullet fragment in my arm.
Yeah, you showed us the wound.
Yes. And I feel like it's not fair for her to diminish what I know happened so that others don't think less of her, but she would rather have them think less of me for something that happened to me.
You mentioned off camera about, well, you've used the term and that there's been ongoing instances of child abuse when you were at various ages. Would you mind telling us, if you're comfortable, when this first started, and when was the first time that you feel that your mom crossed the line where you would classify it as child abuse?
The first time that I knew that her punishing me or her way of spanking was not okay was when I was about 5 years old. I don't remember exactly what I did to get the spanking, but it was so bad that her boyfriend at the time told her to stop, and he told her that I was just a baby and that she shouldn't be hitting me like that, and she continued to yell at him for defending me and trying to get her to stop. I just remember him being in between, like kind of blocking her from getting to me, and that made her angry. So she was kind of just yelling at him and kind of taking it out on him because he wouldn't let her come at me. And another instance was, oh man, I hate this one. I was about 6 or 7. This was a different boyfriend. She was out of the house. She wasn't, I don't know if she worked late or she was just out. I just remember I probably did something to him or said something and misbehaved in some way. And I guess he told her, and I was asleep. And all I remember is her waking up to her hitting me. I had to have been about 6 or 7 because that was the same house that she had hit me in when I was 5. She was with those 2 individuals while we were still in the same home, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not that she was with them at the same time, but different periods.
Did the abuse stop as you got older, or?
No, it only went from open hands to fists or in the face or sitting on my chest and hitting me in the face, choking me. It only got worse.
The abuse got more physical as you got older?
Yeah.
And at some point she was punching you with her closed fist?
Closed fist.
And sitting on your chest so that you couldn't move?
Yeah, that incident, That one was, I had to have been about 16 or 17 when that happened.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was...
How many times, if you were to estimate, do you think that, how many different instances, number of instances do you think there were where your mother's discipline crossed the line of actually being criminal child abuse?
Almost every time. She has a cousin who was married to a social worker, and I had a conversation with them because I used to hang out with her daughter all the time, her cousin, and they both talked to me about it. One day I was at their house, and her husband told me, I can't be around your mom because she is borderline abusive, and if I'm there when she hits you or your brothers or something, I would have to report it. So that was kind of like when I kind of knew, like, I was kind of validated that, the way that she punished me wasn't right. But at the same time, that's kind of when I realized at the same time that these people knew, they didn't do anything about it.
There was adults in your life that were
That
aware
noticed
of the fact.
that noticed it and didn't do anything.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. You've mentioned that you were physically and emotionally abused to the point that it was criminal child abuse, and that this continues, the abuse, to this very day now that you're an adult. Can you explain why you're coming out now to 209 times, why you want thousands of people to listen to this? That this is very, first of all, I'd have to say very courageous on your part. Secondly, it's quite frankly, it's disturbing because this is obviously very painful for you, and at the same time you feel that this is obviously important enough that you've been reaching out to us several times asking for us to do this story. And just explain to us again, why do you feel that this is a hard position to be in, and yet you're having the courage to do this? Where does that courage come from? What is your motivation?
I think my mother and I have always been back and forth. I've always kept trying, and I've always kept trying. And it always ended in the same result. After I had my daughter, maybe a year or two after I had her, I got in another argument with my mother, and I decided that, well, not decided, but I thought that maybe if I put distance between us, that maybe it could possibly bring us closer and all of the back and forth would stop. But all it did was make her angry. It just made her angry that I was leaving. The day that I left Stockton, she, in not so many words, found out where my daughter was being babysat while I was at work, and tried to kidnap her. She tried to stop us from leaving. She was just, and there's a lot more to that story, but in the end, the babysitter called me. I immediately called PD. They met me at the location where my daughter was. My mother was gone already. After the babysitter and everybody in the home told the police what happened, they immediately issued an EPO.
And I'm sorry, can you tell us approximately when this happened?
This was it was either August or September of 2018.
And you filed a police report that resulted in you getting an emergency protective order
Yes.
against your mother?
Yes.
And you felt that your mother did an attempted kidnapping?
I don't know necessarily if it was an attempted kidnapping. I just know that she showed up, she caused a scene and threatened to take her and would not leave the house.
Okay.
And after everybody that was there told the police what happened, they immediately issued an emergency protective order. From my understanding, they called a judge right then and there to get one.
Did you follow up with what happened after that?
No, I didn't. My thought process at the time was, she's not going to know where I live anyways, since I'm going to be about 2.5 hours away. So I never followed through or like went back to get a full restraining order.
Okay.
It took me about 3 or 4 months before I talked to her again. And I was really hesitant about it, but again, like I said, we've always had a very back and forth relationship. We talk, we don't talk. And I started noticing as I've been where I live now, that she's still, like, there was no growing. It was just more so of the same thing, just from a distance. I got upset and I told her, this is not right. You cannot be saying these things because these are not true. And we cut her off. We cut her off in mid-September of 2021. And after that is when we started getting CPS at our door, saying that somebody made a report that there was drugs and alcohol abuse.
Was there drugs and alcohol abuse?
No. The claims were physical abuse.
Was there physical abuse?
No. The claims were all unfounded by CPS. We were drug tested. Everything was unfounded and the case was closed. I was then served with, I think at this point I had already reached out to you guys, and I was then served with the documents for court for a restraining order. My mother was trying to attempt to get a restraining order against me.
But you were leaving her alone, but she was trying to get a restraining order against you?
Yes, she was the one that was, we had blocked her on every social media. We blocked her from contacting us on our phones. She was calling me blocked. She was just calling me unknown. And I had already filed for a restraining order as well.
And where did you file that?
I filed my restraining order in Fresno County.
And approximately when did you do that?
I want to say it had to have been October or November of 2021.
Okay.
And
the reason I'm asking is there are some questions about that as to whether those actually got filed or not. Did the court actually accept the documents that you filed? And
yes, there was a court date.
okay.
Yeah.
And what happened at that court date?
The first court date was with Stockton for her request.
Okay.
So that was in Stockton in December. Her request was denied. She didn't have any proof or grounds for a restraining order, so a judge denied it.
This was her requesting a restraining order against you.
Yes.
Although you actually were trying to avoid her.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we had court in Fresno County for my request for a restraining order against her.
Okay.
And as I was waiting outside that morning to get into the courthouse, she showed up, or she was already there. She had my uncle and his wife come with her to be her witnesses. This uncle we do not talk to, and he's also my father's brother. So why he was there was a complete kind of it was confusion for me, because it didn't make any sense that why he was there. He had nothing to do with any of this. The other thing is that he had threatened me already.
Your uncle had threatened you?
Yeah.
And
he had threatened me through a cousin, one of my cousins, from the 209 Times post. He had commented on there, and my cousin, wanting to defend me, commented back on his comment, and then somehow he found her on Facebook, tried calling her on Facebook Messenger a bunch of times, and then he eventually sent her messages saying, I know you, I know everyone in Stockton, you and Brianna can get your ass beat, which kind of threw me off, because he didn't know her, and he didn't live in Stockton, or he doesn't, as far as I know. And so when he showed up to the court day, I knew it was just to try to intimidate me or scare me, some kind of tactic on her end. I immediately called my attorney at the time, and I made him aware, and I let him know. They ultimately, during that court session, they pushed it to a later date. They pushed it to a later date because I let the judge know that I was scared, because he had threatened me. They ended the court session, and they had a deputy and my attorney escort me to my car.
okay. Did your mother ever tell you that she knew people that could hurt you? Or make any kind of inference like that she knew powerful people?
Not that she knew powerful people that would hurt me. Just that she knew powerful people that would basically get her what she wants, and in this case right now she's trying to get rights to my children.
So walk me through this exactly, because I don't want to put words in your mouth. Explain to me, your mother said what about powerful people exactly? She told you something about, she used the term powerful people, correct?
She didn't tell me. She told others who, and then
would tell
me.
And what was it that you were being told that she said? So it sounds like
that she basically said that she knows enough people that will help her get these rights to my children.
Because she's filed
grandparents' rights.
Right?
Yeah, she believes
that was recently, correct?
Yes, she had me served about 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Well, we've mentioned restraining orders. It sounds like first she filed one against you,
yes.
Then you filed one against her. Are any of these active? Hers was denied. Was yours denied also?
Ours was ultimately dismissed based on some law. It's from what I was told, and I didn't fully understand it, was that because the judge denied in Stockton, that the judge would deny my request, because another judge had already denied hers. That's what I was told by my previous attorney. So we ultimately had to just dismiss it. My attorney gave me the advice of, if she bothers me again, she starts harassing me again, then we will file for another, attempt to file for another restraining order. So that is going to be our next step, is trying to get her another restraining order because she's bothering us again.
A lot has happened, and some of these things reached the level that I would say were not only were they criminal, but there was points in your life, as you're explaining to us, where you actually felt, don't let me put words in your mouth, did you feel at any time in your life that your life was literally in danger at some point?
Yeah.
And would you explain to us about the time when you ran away and what was behind all of that? And I know this is a hard one to talk about, but if you're comfortable, let's proceed with this.
Yeah. When I was 14, I got into another argument with my mother. Boyfriend at that time was in the doorway of my bedroom. My mom and I were arguing. She walked away, went into the kitchen. The way our house was set up at the time was kind of like one of those old Victorian homes, French doors to the kitchen. She went into the kitchen, those doors closed. I, as a teenager, started yelling at this man to get out of my room and go away. Instead of him doing that, he proceeded to come into my bedroom, sit on my bed next to me, and tell me, as he tried to put his hand towards my leg, and told me, this is my house. I can come into any room that I want at any time and do whatever I want. And when he said that, I immediately grabbed a plastic box, and I swung it and hit him in the face. He then started screaming, and my mom ran into the room. She asked what happened, and all he told her was, "You better beat that little bitch's ass." And she cornered me on my bed and continuously punched me all over my body. And all I could do was try to cover my face, and everywhere she was kind of going to. The next day she sent me to school. I'm pretty sure I wore like my PE clothes. So if you know what your high school PE clothes, Franklin, the gray sweater, green sweats. Every morning when I would go to school, I would hang out with my older cousins. I was a freshman at the time. I think they were juniors. I went to go sit with them like I do every morning, or like I did every morning. And one of my cousins noticed that I had bruises on my neck area and my jaw. She asked me what happened. Tried to tell her I was fine. She took me to the restroom and told me that she was good. If whatever it was, that I could talk to her and tell her what happened. So I took my sweater off, and she saw everything. She called her mom. My other cousin was there as well. They didn't really know how much they could help me, but they took me to we went to one of my cousin's house. They didn't drive, I didn't drive, so we actually went on the RTD bus. So we left school that morning, and my cousin said, "You can't go home." I'm like, "I don't want to go home." Her mother cleaned me up, told me I didn't do anything wrong, I was gonna be okay. They took care of me that night, and my other cousin had went home. But that night she ended up coming back in the middle of the night to let us know that my mom was looking for me. I guess she sent the police to one of my cousin's house. But the next day they called my grandfather, my paternal grandfather. Well, I did. And he came and got me. And he took me home with him. And my grandmother just hugged me and told me it was gonna be okay, but that she had to see what happened to me. So I showed her. I never told anybody exactly why I hit him. I was too scared. I was too scared that she would do it again or believe him and not me. After my grandmother looked, I counted a total of 27 bruises all over my body.
Who gave you those bruises?
My mother. And it wasn't until years later that I thought my mother and I were at a good point in our relationship where I could tell her what really happened and why I hit him. But it didn't matter because she called me a liar and told me that that's not what happened. And till this day, she's said it multiple times that it's not true. What
do you think he was trying to do?
At that time, I believed he was threatening to rape me at some point. That he was just trying to let me know that he could do it whenever he wanted. And that I would just have to that I would never know when it was coming, but that it was gonna come. But I'm glad that I went to school the next day, because if I wouldn't have, then nobody would have seen the marks on my body, and nobody would have known, and nobody would have helped me. So if it wasn't for my two cousins, I could have been assaulted.
That's a lot to process, and again, your bravery is very commendable. And what is it that you want your mother, Angelann Flores, to do at this point? What would you like to happen?
I want her to go away. I want her to leave me alone. I'm happy. I'm healthy. My kids are happy. They're healthy. They're safe. And I want her to just allow us to be how we are. We are fine. And I don't feel like there is any chance of resolving this, rectifying it. There's no going back anymore.
Okay.
I don't want anything to do with her. All I want is for her to leave me alone. I get no I don't get any joy out of having to say that I want nothing to do with my mother. It doesn't make me happy, it hurts. But at this point, it's not a good relationship. It's never going to be. I'm 27 years old and she's still doing the same things that she's done to me since I was a child. There's no going back. I want to not have to worry about her or what she's gonna do next or what she's gonna say next. I want her to just leave me alone. I want to just live my life. She's making all of these accusations when she's 2.5 hours away. She has no idea what goes on in my home. So,
Brianna, there's two reasons why this has become newsworthy. One is something that you said earlier, and that is that you mentioned that you feel that some parents that abuse their child as children continue that abuse even up into adulthood, and so you want the public to know that there's some situations where child abuse continues to be adult abuse. Am I paraphrasing you correctly?
yes, that's accurate.
Okay. And then secondly, the fact is your mother is a school trustee for the Stockton Unified School District, and she's obviously in a position where she's impacting the lives of other children, potentially making decisions that are complex and have to do with the lives of other children. What is it that you want the citizens of Stockton and the families of the Stockton Unified School District to know? And maybe a simpler question is, are you sure that you want this to go onto 209 Times and thousands of people will see this?
Yeah. I feel like it's always been her telling her story and my story. But I think it's time for me to tell my story and how I felt and what happened to me and what I know happened to me and what I remember. I don't think it's fair for her to be able to tell my story when it's not her story.
Okay.
And if she can't or didn't or won't keep her own children safe as adults, then I wouldn't trust her with other people's children.
Brianna, I think I can speak on behalf of 209 Times that we are going to go ahead and grant your request, and we will put this on 209 Times. Thousands of people are going to see this, and I think it took a lot of bravery for you to reach out to us. It certainly took a lot of bravery for you to go through this obviously painful interview. I want to thank you very much for that. I also want to tell you on behalf of all of us, we want you and your family to have a wonderful and happy life, and we thank you very much for your courage, and God bless you.
Thank you.